Okay, so stuff on finishing. I use wipe-on poly quite a bit, and as I know some of you do. One of the issues that I had a while back was lint, and so I got onto WOW, the World of Woodturners, and posed the question, like, has anybody got any ways of solving this problem? Of course, everybody says, well, use lint-free cloths. Well, they don't exist. But one guy said use nylon stockings. Well, I tried nylon stockings, bunched them up, and there was no lint, but I couldn't control the material, or sorry, the product in it. It was just, you know, it would just make a mess. So I don't know if you're familiar with French polish, where you make a kind of a pad, and you make a pad out of a piece of material. This is a t-shirt or something. I've used even blue cloths, and you use a little bit of nylon stocking. And nylon stocking, of course, is good because it doesn't have lint. And you make a little pad like that, and away you go. What I was doing initially was dipping it, pouring some off and dipping it into the product. One thing I did learn: don't do this for any of your like wipe-on poly or oils or anything like that. If you do this and put it on, do this and put it on, you eventually pollute your product, and it kills it. It's not good for it at all. At the very least, it makes it dirty. So what I do is I pour it off into I was pouring it off into a container and using that. However, when I dipped it in, I had no control over the amount that would go on. Sometimes it'd be a lot, sometimes it'd be a little. And those times that I had too much, that would still produce runs. One day it kind of hit me to, instead of pouring it into like a little container, and another reason I pour it off the amount I'm going to use or guesstimate it, is that what I pour off is used, it's gone. I don't use anything, I don't put anything back in there. That was when I used one of these. Now when I've got a little container like this, nothing comes in contact with anything, so anything I don't use goes back in there. But by, pretend there's product in here, squeezing it on here, I completely control how much is in there. So I've gotten to the point now where I can squeeze it on there, and I can fill this up, and I can recognize when it's just the right amount. And then you put it on. So two things happened. Number one, I got rid of lint, but I also got rid of runs. I think partly because I can control how much I'm putting on here, and the other is the nylon stocking kind of seems to regulate how much goes on. At any rate, I eliminated the lint problem, and I eliminated the run problem. I have not had a single run since I started using this. What I also do too is I save them. I just put them aside, and that's a good way of, when you're putting 8, 10 coats on, it's a good way of counting the number of coats that you have when you have these things laying around, and then I throw them all away when I'm done. Shoot, I can't remember what I was just going to say. Anyway, that's right. These little containers, now, I learned this from Meryl Salin in a workshop I took from her. Wonderful old gal. She's in her 80s now. Fabulous artist, learned a lot about color, and what she does is she mixes up a paint, and then it'll be that color. Well, she's not going to mix up anything else and match it. So what she does is put them in these little containers, and they're the sauce containers you get with a salad or whatever. And they get them down in the States in Costco. I had to go twist some arms at Save-On, but not that big a deal. And I got a bag of the containers and a bag of the lids. So when I pour off some tung oil for a project, it's in here, and I don't know if you noticed, but you can see that perhaps see that the rag is in there and everything. And so when I go to the next coat, I just take it out and I do it, and I put the lid back on. And then that doesn't go back in the container. That brings to mind something that I have to bring up. I think, like some of these things, like the handle thing and the hot glue thing, that's something I discovered all by my little self. But the vast majority, practically all of the little tricks that I've got up my sleeve, I learned from demonstrations. That I didn't go to the demonstration to learn that, or the workshop. but I did along the way. A perfect example is that trick that I showed you with the wax on the tool rest. I learned that from John Jordan. I went to a hollow turning demonstration and workshop, which, like, you might not choose to do that, and I wouldn't blame you, but still, you go because you learn stuff like that. And like I say, the vast majority of these little gimmicks that I have that make my life fantastic around the lathe are little gems that I picked up on seminars, demonstrations, and workshops that had absolutely nothing. The title of it had absolutely nothing to do with what I learned. Anyway, benefit to go to these things. Another thing that I wanted to show you was that finishes, like this is the only tongue oil I've used, modified tongue oil from Mohawk. It's $40 for this can. If it goes off halfway down, and it always does, plus the last little bit before it goes off doesn't perform well at all, it's now $80 for this. I was getting a little cheesed at that. Have done for years, actually. I tried marbles, I tried little rocks, I tried everything to raise the level. And I even tried this stuff you buy from Lee Valley. You squirt it in there, and it's not worth a hoot, at least not for tongue oil and wipe on poly. But I did buy some Lee Valley wipe on, or Lee Valley tongue oil. I don't like it, but on the back it said, you know, to pour water in to raise the level, so to keep the air out. I thought, well, that's pretty good. So I tried that, and I used this rum bottle because I thought I don't want to, you know, get the thing all the way to, or sorry, get the water all the way up here and go to pour some off, and I've got none left. It's all water. So that's why I poured it in the rum bottle, so I could see what was going on. And it is pretty cool because you can see, you know, obviously it works. But now I'm freaking out because I'm sure I'm going to drop this bottle and lose it all anyway. So I tried it with wipe on poly, putting it in a little container like that, pouring some water in, and sure enough it separated and it didn't harm the product at all. So now what I do is I pour it in here and I measure how much water I pour in here and I write it down. So obviously when it's this 940 mils. So when I get to like 850 or 900 mils or something like that, I think I'll shut it down. And all I do is use a little graduated flask, so I know how much I put in. It doesn't have to be a graduated flask. As long as you can measure how many mils you put in, or however many ounces, depending on the manufacturer, and then write it down every time. And then you know when you're starting to get close to the bitter end. So, just a couple little tricks. Like a funny little story. I needed some nylon stockings, so I was out. So I went in for the finishing, and so I went into London Drugs and I bought some nylons, or grabbed some nylon stockings, and I was at the same time building it or making a jack. You know, like the game of jacks, only a great big one. And I made one of the knobs on it an eyeball, and I was going to call it a one-eyed jack, but it needed eyelashes. So I'm looking around for eyelashes, and the gal's there, and I said, you know, I'm holding the stockings, and I said, I'm looking for eyelashes, to stick on eyelashes, where are those? And she looked at me kind of funny. I went, well, it's for a sculpture that I'm doing. Can you give me some eyelashes? I had to get out of there. That woman probably went, and she had the greatest story to tell her kids when she went. So don't buy your nylon stockings and your eyelashes at the same time. I'm just going to take a little walk around the shop and just show a couple of things. I'm pretty sure that Ross and Jay are going to show the same thing. So if you don't see me at those, it's been fun doing it this way, even though I'm not out there looking at you guys out there. It's kind of weird looking at a camera. So anyway, I'll get to those things in just a minute.